Alright, today we're going to be looking at everyone's favorite, and that is model Sean O'Pry. Probably the most successful male model in today's era. Uh, Potentially after David Gandhi, but either way. Alright, let's begin. And I'll tell you right off the bat that Sean has a lot of strong points and a lot of weak points. So he has a lot of high highs and low lows. So let's begin with his side profile. His brow region is very masculinized, and that is clearly evident in his front profile as well. So we can see his nasofrontal angle is extremely low at about 113 degrees, and that is really masculinized and perfectly harmonious. You can see that his brow protrudes, and his nasolabial angle is also highly masculinized. So it's about 100 degrees, but it varies between 98 to 100 depending on the photo, which is pretty masculinized. It's not on the super low end, but you don't really want an 80 degree nasolabial angle. And his facial convexity is also ideal, or how rounded his face is. It's not too round or too flat. It's about 172 degrees, so he likely has a perfect dental occlusion, no overbite, no underbite. So that is ideal as well. His jaw angle is the first flaw we'll come to. So his gonale angle is a little bit too obtuse. And you can see it's because his mandible is a little bit too downswung. So his jaw angle is about 120, let's see here, about 125, it looks like here, but depending on the photo it's 125 to 128, which is not bad by any means, but it is also not the low high bite force jaw that you'll see in someone like Ian Somerhalder. And it comes down to personal preference really, but in terms of absolute objective standards, in men you do want a more masculinized jaw to have the perfect male face. But this doesn't detract away from his facial attractiveness, and some people may prefer the way this jaw looks, so that's perfectly fine. And we'll see that this jaw angle doesn't become a flaw in isolation. Like his mandibular plane angle, or how steep his jaw is also a little bit too steep. So it's about 24, or we'll say about 25 to 26 degrees. As I measured it in the sheet, is about 25.7. So that is too steep of an angle, as you can see here. This angle right here, if it's not clear, is too steep, and it produces a downswung jaw look, and we'll see how that affects his frontal profile, because it does, and it is a big flaw. However, one redeeming feature of his jaw, it's not all a bad jaw, he does have a good jawline, way better than 99% of people, is that his ramus is quite long, and is the perfect proportion to his mandible. So he has a big jaw body, like his jaw makes up a lot of space because it has a long ramus and a long mandible. But by no means is it a perfect jawline. Next, we'll look at his mental labial angle, which is this angle made between his lower lip and his chin, and it is perfectly ideal as well. Depending on the photo you take it, let's see here, I have it measured at 115 degrees, or 114.7 approximately, and this is perfectly ideal. It gives you a little bit of a sharper separation between the lip and the chin look. So, and this is really only achieved through low body fat. As you can see, if you gain fat, you're gonna have less of a contour here, less of a space or indent. Another flaw we'll take a look at is frontal profile, and use this photo here, is his chin to philtrum ratio is slightly outside of the ideal. So he does have a short philtrum as opposed to some guys like Rob Lowe or Ian Somerhalder. But his chin is also very tall, so that combination gives him a chin that is about 2.83 times taller than his philtrum, and that is not in the ideal range for men. It's about 2 to 2.5. Another really positive feature is his facial width to height ratio. He has an extremely compact midface, and it produces a very striking model-esque appearance. So his facial width to height ratio is 2.08, which is very high, but still perfectly in the ideal harmonious range. So it's not too compact, but it is a masculinizing and attractive feature. His cheekbones are extremely high set, and we'll see that here. So this is the widest part of his face, and you can see that they go very high up, very close to his eyes. You can see there's really little distance here, so his cheekbones are really high set. And if you see a 3/4 profile of him, you can see that his OG curve is very close to his eyes as well. So that's probably why he has a lot of success in the modeling industry. Another really strong feature is his facial thirds. Oh, messed up there. So his facial thirds are perfect. His lower third is about 34.4%, so masculinized and a little bit taller than his other thirds. Middle third is the most compact, and his upper third is about 33.1. So these are perfect facial thirds. Like if you want to emulate an ideal facial third, it would look like this. As you can see, the lower third is slightly larger, which is masculinizing, but no third strays too far from an equal 33%. And his lower third facial proportion is also very harmonious. So the distance between his nose to his upper lip is almost 1/3. It's about 30.8%. It could be a little bit higher towards 33%, but it's still pretty good. As we mentioned, that his lower jaw is a little overpowering to his upper jaw, or his lip to his nose. The next thing we'll look at is his mid-face ratio. And his mid-face ratio is a little bit too compact. So this distance here, smaller brush, this distance divided by this distance, his is about 1.09, which is a little bit too compact in a male face. Even in a female face, it's becoming a bit much, as the ideal is 0.93 to 1.03, so close to a perfect square. And again, his shorter philtrum contributes to this, and his wider set eyes also contribute. So basically it's the opposite of Ian Somerhalder, who has closer eyes and a longer philtrum. And his eye spacing is perfectly ideal. So no surprise that his eye area is one of his strongest points. It's almost perfect, but it does have a few flaws. So it's about 46.5% his eye distance as a proportion to his facial width, or 46.65, sorry. And his eyes, so that is in the perfect ideal range for men. And his eyes are a little bit farther than one eye apart, 1.05, but it's not a big deal. It's about one eye apart. So overall, his eye spacing is top tier. It's very good. And his eyebrow tilt is a little bit flatter than ideal, but it's still ideal. Like, I wouldn't detract any points for this. It's about like 5 to 7 degrees, so I take back what I said. It's not flatter than ideal. It's just there are different brow shapes. Like, you don't have to have very upturned brows. In fact, super upturned brows are a flaw because you look like a supervillain. So his brows are essentially perfect. but there are variations in what a perfect brow can look like, so it doesn't have to look like this. And his orbital vector, or how this region below his eye protrudes, is not positive. It's pretty neutral. Like, you can see that he doesn't have much protrusion over the eye. It's just neutral. Like, it's not really recessed, or it's not really prominent. It's about neutral to slightly positive. So he could be better, but I wouldn't consider that a big flaw, so I did not deduct too many points for that. His canthal tilt is quite high, and you can see that he does have some eye asymmetry, which is why I said his eye area is not perfect. There is some eye asymmetry between the two, and you can see a little bit too much of the whites under the eyes, which is called scleral show, and that is typically not attractive in any case, but it's not too bad in Sean's case. And his eye canthal tilt is about 8.4 degrees. So these are quite upturned eyes, but is still within 1 degree of the ideal range. So it just gives him a unique look, although it's not perfect. It's still a good angle. So yeah, and this eye potentially looks like it has the same canthal tilt, or slightly more. Okay, the last thing we'll look at is his jaw angle in the front, which is a pretty big flaw. And that is also a result of his higher mandibular plane angle. So I'll put it simply like this. Mandibular plane angle, if it's higher than the jaw frontal angle, it tends to become lower because it becomes steeper. And the opposite effect, if you have a really flat mandibular plane angle, then your jaw frontal angle becomes really high and flat. We'll see that here. So you see his jaw is a little bit too down swung, and his chin is very wide. So the combination of a wide chin and a down swung mandible gives you a jaw angle about 77 degrees. I have it measured at 76.6 degrees. So when the ideal in literature is about 83 to 95, that is quite outside of the ideal range. It's about 5 to 6 degrees outside, depending on which photo you use. And it does produce a slightly undesirable jaw effect, but it's not anything crazy. And this flaw does become worse because it doesn't affect his face in isolation. This is his ipsilateral alar angle, and you can see there's a bit of a deviation between the two. And when there's about a 13 or 12.7 degree difference, it does have a bit of a disharmony. Ideally, those two angles should be about the same, or about 5 degrees difference. And yeah, so if this is like 90 degrees and the other one was about 77, there's about a 13 degree difference. That's not great. Alright, that covers all the measurements we're going to go into. There are plenty more, but the gist is that all the others are very good, so there's not much to nitpick there. And Sean's final score is about 73.3%. And his point score is 8. So very similar, if not equal, to Ian Somerhalder in facial harmony. And I know people will get upset because they love Sean O'Pride, but the thing is, he does have a few objective flaws, and that doesn't take away from his overall attractiveness, because he does have great features like dense dark eyebrows, like good hair. So you don't want to detract away from his overall looks, but the thing is that he does have objective flaws, mainly in his jaw. The rest is very good. Like, he has a great nose, great brow region. So it's mainly just in his jaw that his flaws are evident. And that's it for this video. Leave any more suggestions you would like to see, because that's the ones I'm doing right now. And if you'd like to order analysis, there's a description of links in the comments or in the video description. And thank you.